grants and things, and some of the comments were, well, we reached out to them, but nobody showed up, and it's that same social construct notion of they might not understand the access and the rules of doing it. And so I think that's I'm guessing the committee and thinking about what the committee, and looking at option one is making sure that their families didn't have to guess, or kids didn't have to think about, am I smart enough, or I don't think I am, or I don't match, but hey, we think you all do, and we're going to put you in there, and then we're going to support the heck out of you so that you don't move back to the, oh my gosh, it's just a challenge course doing general ed stuff.
Removing that barrier.
Remove the barrier.
I struggle with the kids that we've had come speak and that we know exist in this program, that many take only one class. So if they move in between general ed and challenge, that notion of, and that's why it frustrates me that it's so much anecdotal information and that we haven't done research on the program that we have, because I feel like I'd rather see, I'm hearing, well, these kids think they're done. Well, I don't hear the kid that's taking one challenge class and then 3 general classes as them saying that they think they're done. Well, and maybe some do, and I hear many that don't. So.
And I have to say, I want to not breach confidentiality. I know someone very well that was approached in 7th grade. He was suggested to take an English course, and he did not tell his parents because he thought it was too tough.
And that might be true.
But again, anecdotal.
And I know David was getting in. I think to me, that's the question though. And I don't want to come across that I'm not sensitive to where we're going. I just think, yes, I think that it takes on a big problem. It takes a long time to find out what really is the issue, then match your solutions to that. And so I concur that we have concerns in our middle school, and that we have concerns with our, I'll call them individual social capital. There's lots of reasons why. So I want to address that, and my sense is that this program, it doesn't, to me, seem like it's affecting the things that are the barriers to learning for the students as I understand that. And so that's why I'm very hesitant, and to do a massive program change scares me when I'm not sure we've correctly diagnosed the source of the concerns for our students.
Did you have a point?
Yeah, I don't think it was going to
Yeah, this isn't really a question, but just a statement. And I'll credit Sandy for this, thinking this is back in September. And you made a comment about, I think, why this is such a struggle. And when you look at these reports, and some say yes, some say no. You get a lot of conflicting information. I think it's conflicting because we have a model in the elementary school where the kids are integrated together for the most part. We have a high school where we've got kids that go in different directions with Running Start, college and high school, AP, IB. So we have that, and then we have this 3 grades in the middle. Now it's 6, 7, 8. And so I think, the question is, what's developmentally appropriate? And I think that's really tough to answer because we've got a spectrum of kids. Some are more mature, some are more ready than others, some have more social capital, for whatever reasons. So it's really difficult to say, is it 6th grade where we start to segregate towards this high school, college, future, societal segregation? Is that appropriate? Or is it 7? Or is it 8? Or is it 9? I think we've all agreed it's 9 because that's going to happen in the high school. We've agreed it's not appropriate in 5th because that's elementary. But what do we do? Where do we draw that line to where is the point where it is appropriate, for example, for kids to start to take these segregated opportunities to prepare for what is right around the corner of freshman year? They have to make that choice.
That's well said. And I would say that I'll just add on that is what the subcommittee spent 10 months on, is trying to figure out what to answer some of those questions. What does that program look like for middle school? This is the work that they're moving forward. That's been endorsed, and it's the recommendation, and then the task force looked at it. So their work, they've tried to answer those questions in the best way that they know how, and they've done some excellent work and research, asking all those same kinds of questions. This is what they've moved forward.
And the awesome thing is they've also given us other options, and I noticed that option 3 is it the one where 6 heterogeneous classrooms for 6th grade, which is the current model that we're doing. And then, is that option 3?
Yeah.
I can't
You
read
don't
the
have your
small
glasses
print.
and
No.
then self-select.
And then 7, thank you.
You're
Sandy.
welcome.
I love you. I just feel like an old lady. Okay.
Hey.
Those are my glasses.
So heterogeneous classes for 6th grade and then challenge challenge
Subset.
courses for 7th, 8th grade. I noticed that that was the second choice that the academic subcommittee had made. There were 7 votes for that
would be
one.
the task force.
Task force, I'm sorry. You gotta keep me straight on all these.
So the
But it's
academic
names and
subcommittee's
labels.
second highest was option 4.
I meant the middle school task force.
Oh, okay.
You were correct, I said it wrong.
Okay.
And their second highest, I noticed, was option 3. So one thing that I found a little bit confounding is that in some of these, I don't notice impacts for option 1. And I'm guessing that there's more than what we're realizing here. Option 3, you've named some of the impacts, but why don't you briefly describe for me how you think that this would affect inequity? This option, what we're doing now, keeping with the status quo for now. Because this
I think
Be a little more specific, just on which portion of the document you would like us to respond to.
So probably equity.
Under the
so
equity
page
considerations?
39.
Sure, yeah.
So I think we've listed the impacts.
Opportunities, impacts for each one of those, and the equity definition that the subcommittee came up with is on the left. So that's what they used as their operational definition. So that when they ranked the considerations about which of the options best meets equity in their opinion, then they were able to spread those 100 points.
Yes. So do you know why the 7 people that chose this as option 2 chose that? Or did they give you
No,
reason
No.
we did not ask for reasoning on any of them.
or justification for it?
Nope. It wasn't an electronic, anonymous vote.
Everybody voted on each option.
Everybody voted on each
Also voted
option.
on the other 3.
Yep, the 7 people voted yes.
And this is, because I wasn't here at the time, this is a board-appointed task force? It is. And can voting be done anonymously on a board-appointed task force? Or do you have to
It's a
take?
subcommittee, and this was a
Subcommittee and then
They
a
both
task
did.
I don't think we have any directions anywhere, anything written about that.
Yeah, it's board-appointed.
Yeah, no, but we checked with Buzz, and it's not made up of board members, elected officials is the difference, and so, no, that's it.
Just wanted to clarify. So there
No
were,
problem.
I also have another question. I don't mean to ask this to upset anybody, but just out of curiosity, I know one of the things, Larry, that you mentioned yesterday was that it's important for us to get, direction and decisions made so that we have time to really work through and successfully implement any of these options.
Yeah, so just for those of you who weren't at, this came up at the PTSA Connections luncheon yesterday. And I would just reiterate what I said there, which is all 4 of the options have some level of support from both the academic subcommittee as well as the full middle school grade reconfiguration task force. I certainly understand, I think every administrator around sitting around the table understands the sensitivity of this issue. I think what's most important is that whatever direction we proceed with, that we give ourselves the best opportunity to do it well, which means that in the remaining 16 months between now and when this becomes live for kids and within schools, that we utilize those 16 months to the best of our ability to be successful, which means we have to have a target that we're shooting at and so that we can plan towards.
I think my follow-up question is, I know there's been tons of work put into this. Would more than 16 months, if we had another 12 months, if we said we're going to open the middle school we're gonna have the current model in place, and then we're going to take this on as another focused item. I know people put tons of work into this, but are there any problems with that option?
The biggest problem I see with that is that we have a significant transition point at 17, 18, and my concern would be that trying to make that type of a pivot after we've made that big transition would be, to my way of thinking, even more difficult than trying to make it with the transition. Things become institutionalized, or they become the norm, they become what folks are used to. We're ripping off lots of big Band-Aids in 17, 18, and it just seems that, we've been gearing towards this being one of those big Band-Aids that we rip off. However, whatever size or shape of Band-Aid it's going to be, that is part of that transition, and I think it would be even more difficult culturally and politically later, is my assessment.
And I guess, as much I would love to discuss this for another year, we communicate, I don't want to say sold it, because I think it's true that middle school is not high school light in the way that junior high is, and it's really an opportunity to change instruction, and challenge is just a subset of curriculum at middle school, and I'm worried that if we postpone it, we lose that opportunity to really create this curriculum for this age level that isn't just copying what we do at high school.
I have an additional comment on the earlier questions. I think, I had the question about the board president giving the guidance, which I think, only the board can give guidance, and so.
That could be my mistake alone.
I understand, but that's not an insignificant point as we operate. And no matter what the board chooses, it's the board has decided, not any one of us. The other thing is that this first bullet point is choosing the philosophy, and then that this task force chose a philosophy. And what I'm going to say is going to sound a little overstated, but I think it might be useful to express the concern. So we're going to choose a philosophy if the sun revolves around the moon or the moon revolves around the sun. And then we're going to do all of our work based upon the philosophy we chose. And the philosophy that was chosen is AMLE. And the addendum that the Save Our Challenge folks sent to us shows a fairly strong discreditation and some very specious foundations for that particular middle school movement. And so I think we all, if the board hasn't seen that and had a chance to read it, I think it's a really powerful thing to think about. And I think one of the reasons why, in my opinion, we've identified some problems, but we haven't focused on the real problem, and we certainly didn't focus on our solution. We focused on our solution before we focused on the problem. And so I think that's backwards. And so the result you get is kind of predetermined when you choose your philosophy first, rather than looking to understand what the evidence actually shows you about what's going on. So I think that's problematic, but I don't think this has been a waste of time. And I want to be very clear that I think that this process, it's a bigger problem to identify and to understand and to solve than 10 months can do with a largely volunteer task force. And so I am thinking very strongly that, and I respectfully disagree with the superintendent on the notion that taking the big bath and that we should make this change when we're making every single other change. I agree with Professor Charlotte Griffey Brown, who studies organizations and change and other things, and says, this is the kind of change you can make later. I don't think we know enough. So just so everyone understands, and I would need to see the evidence to say otherwise. And the other side of the coin is, on a big change like this, we're elected representatives. We work for the people who are in the community, and they're not convinced. They're not convinced at all. And I share their lack of being convinced that we've really identified it. And so I think it would be highly problematic to move forward with a major change when we quite haven't figured it all out, and I'm not surprised we haven't figured it out. It's not a criticism, it's a, let's take another year or two, and let's really truly understand what it is. We have a model that works in some ways, we know some of the concerns that we have, and let's start focusing on those problem areas, and that is class composition, it is our general ed, and maybe we need to put more resources, that's money, into those in order to make sure those struggling students get brought up. I'm happy to vote for those kinds of things, because that's where I think we might get the best investment and actually get the result and fix the equity and the performance gaps.
Would you be for 6th heterogeneous and 7th, 8th?
I think, I mean,
Well, I just point of order, we're
Yeah.
not voting yet.
I understand, but I wouldn't, Grant, I wouldn't mind tweaking.
Just clarify.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. I think we have to trust our educational professionals. I think we have to get our teachers and our principals and our pairs and everyone else to work together, and this is like product development. You're trying to build something new. You're trying to, and I think we gotta play with it. I think we gotta innovate with it. I'd be more than happy, I'd be totally supportive if one of the schools next year or in the second half of next year, you know, they built relationships with the teachers and the teacher says, hey, I'm gonna run a challenge for all section. And I want people to volunteer to do it. I don't know if you for it, or you could say, hey, we're gonna do that, who'll be in that thing, and let's show it working. And I think we can transition to, and if the Bellevue model is working, I wanna understand why before I make a big investment in a change.
Can I just clarify what you
Please.
just said? Are you just focused on this subset of the challenge question or the whole middle school model that we are not addressing until 2 or 3 years
Oh, no,
down
I mean,
the
we're
road?
changing to the middle school model.
And so we will have a curriculum that reflects that it's middle school and not junior high.
I'm not sure what that means.
Well, so junior high basically is driven by the fact that you have 9th graders in there. And they have to get their high school credits. So
Okay.
you have to set up a system that's a 6-period day that has
Got you.
classes.
Right, so
designed.
you're constrained by the fact that there are high school students in our 7, 8, 9
Right,
classes.
and
Good
that's
point.
been the whole point of this process, is that we are now freed of that constraint, and we now have a middle school model that
Great
doesn't
point.
have that limitation, and that, the challenge is, just like I said, a subset of the work of all of this. So are you saying we just continue on with the junior high model until 2 or 3 years down the road, or do we move to a middle school curriculum format, and then, and you are asking that we postpone the addressing the challenge issue?
No, I don't use this junior high model. I think that we have classes we offer for 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders. And that is generally working with some known pressure points, and that we should, with laser-like accuracy, focus on what's not working. And so I would think that we could keep, what I see as option 3 is status quo. That 7th grade and 8th grade look like 7th and 8th grade we have today.
Okay.
6th grade looks like what we have
So
today.
you're I guess what I'm hearing you say is that we are moving towards a middle school model, but the challenge portion is in a status quo until we address some of your questions.
I guess on the academic piece,
Yes.
I'm thinking that option 3 is the lowest risk, highest
Okay.
value, and augment it with resources to target on the
I
equity
just
gap.
need.
Yeah, I
Okay.
wasn't sure if I was saying something that I wasn't tracking your question or
Yeah, no,
concern.
I got it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have to.
So can I add
Absolutely.
one thing? Sorry, like I said, I have a lot more questions and
Well,
a dialogue. But another concern besides the fact that I don't think that we've gotten the data that actually shows that this isn't working, that a lot of the information's anecdotal, based on how we're performing, not based on some of the information from the outside, how our students are performing within this model. I also feel like, we also have not surveyed our community, specifically about challenge, and we made that commitment. I heard it, several times that we were going to survey our community. And that I find frustrating too, because that's who we're representing. And we did survey the community about middle school. That was open-ended questions, but we didn't ask them specifically about challenge. So I asked for the raw data and put together, based on this, what our community is thinking about challenge. And we don't need to go through this now, because I haven't seen any of that raw data put together and analyzed for what kind of themes there are. I know 2 questions were given to the subcommittee, but not the rest of them, is my understanding. From the middle school, from the academic survey that we sent out. What was that called? The grade reconfiguration survey.
2 questions related to.
There were 2 questions that
Related to
were,
middle school.
yeah, there were 2 for high school and 2 for middle school. There might have been another one for elementary, I'm not sure. That information has gone to the task force to have them review and look at it at their next night's meeting.
So, but out of all the raw data that came in, and again, we'll have to further this later, but 10% of the comments were about challenge. And so I've broken it down here, and Larry, I didn't not give you one of these intentionally. In fact, you can have mine. Might only need 5 copies, 6 copies, but I'm trying to make more. So, and I can send you a hard copy of this, but that's based off the raw data that we got, and 10% of the people that made comments about this change are commenting on challenge. And that's quite a few, and 8% of those comments were positive about the challenge program. So that concerns me too, is we don't have buy-in from our community. And I think that we need to be surveying them and asking them, just like we are with the Later Start.
Okay, so let's, this is going to have to pause because we do have a commitment to do our meeting at 7. What we have, I have 2 points of information, then I have a question for you guys. So we have here, this is the communication plan that Leanna put together. If you have any thoughts, let either myself or her know. And based within the communication plan, right now, we have scheduled our next board meeting. We will have a first reading, which is more opportunities for the board to discuss this topic before a vote, which would be May 24th is when the vote is scheduled. So my question for the board is a first reading a good format to continue our discussion, or do we need another study session?
Another study session.
I'd rather us be able to all get all of our questions out and discuss this before any of us feel like we need to press a button and vote. That's my feeling on it. What do you think?
I think we need more time on this issue.
Sandy, do you have any thoughts?
Well, we have to do it in May.
We have to do it in May.
Why do we have to do it?
Because we need to let people know what to be looking for in the fall of 2017. We can't let this drag on for months. There's so much angst about it that we need to get this decision done. And if we don't set an endpoint for ourselves, we're like a gas. We'll expand to fill whatever time
But
there
I
is
just
available.
got these, so that, again, this is what
Yeah.
I've been talking about, is the board doesn't get enough time to digest.
Well, and we're
these.
talking
So,
about adding more
but you
time.
it has to be done soon.
Yeah.
It's, so by May, that would not allow us to have one more study session before first and second reading.
Yeah, we could have a study session.
And then first, right, no, if you say May, the way the calendar works, if we add the study session, which is the question, and 2
Right.
people already said yes,
Right.
then it would put the second reading decision in June, first meeting in June, which is fine. Okay, I wasn't sure if you were, I mean, I concur, and maybe have it in a time when it can expand to it, because I think there's a lot of good things going on.
So
One more
Oh,
study
we
session?
may have to add a study session, just so you guys know, because the May 10th study session has to do with ADTF's proposal for the multi-property, which will be another lengthy conversation. I don't think we could add this to it. So we'll have to look at an additional time to get together.
I just think it's too important of an issue for our community, our district.
Well, absolutely.
Again,
And
You know,
I'm not
and I-
Just
disagreeing, I'm
because it's
just
so
saying.
hard for me to organize over email, because it's not
I
quite
know.
legal. So I wanted just to ask,
But
is it
Leanna's
okay?
doing the text now,
Well,
saying,
I know, I heard. So,
yeah.
Yeah, so we can talk schedules later, but I'm gonna be asking Cindy to help find time to find 2-3 hours.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
I
you
know it's
guys.
hard
So this is
coordinating
a pause,
schedules.
this is a pause,
Yes.
which
It-
means we
it's-
won't, we
we're
don't have
much
to
further
edit
down
the,
the
It's not like any of
edit
us
the
want to
meeting.
be here nothing more.
So we are going to adjourn the study session
Well, I
right
think
now.
it's right here.
We heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard it. Don't come out, I got a signature.
What was this?
Yeah.
Hey, Drew, for the
I mean, we're not here, we're talking about value.
I don't think I had
done all our work. Yes, it's
Yeah.
all here.
Yeah.
So,
I
I think a little more
Some
for
points in
Sandy,
time.
and we'd be glad to have questions like, and
It
we
is.
don't,
It is.
and we can send those in.
Can we have a 5-minute break?
Yes, I do. I want to grab some, but really the conversation is you guys, I think our work is done.
I wanted,
Well, and
are you hungry?
You said that.
I ate
Yeah.
before.
Right.
I can't run a meeting
Yeah.
that
We don't have
work.
the same meeting more than twice.
Right,
But this meeting, we weren't done yet.
Yeah.
And I think.
no, totally get that, totally.
And so, but,
do you think it's
But
gonna
I
be rude for me
understand.
to eat while I'm up
we
there?
also have. to
I
get done.
would take a minute now, Kimberly. I'm just gonna make you choose fast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just.
It's important work.
Well,
It's important work. What time is it?
It's 2 up.
It is about to see the process, understanding, and then.
So, Renee, how did you feel about this morning's conference?
Well, I was a little bit disappointed that the reps from the.
I made some, over there, and I think they're really, but I want to report to our conversation.
They're such a big part of our growing diversity. They're such a
I'm not
focal
sure
point
how
of
much
our
more
diversity. But,
from our perspective.
you know, I think we can come in.
You're good, you can, you're good.
You know, my,
And then we're supposed to be careful about that comment.
just kind of driving.
Yeah, I think you did a good job. You're 2 steps back and.
Once, you know, it is that, I mean, it's not really, I would love to see,
You know, if it's gonna be a community
At some point in
initiative,
time,
it
say,
should be a community initiative. I've been really clear with
or we're
Jen.
gonna wait and pay for another year, and then.
The community initiative needs some kind of backbone.
I know, oh, I love the way.
And we have our
don't
own
think
work,
that
and we'll continue to do that work, but we want to have that work be part of a broader movement. I like, you know, that the city and the churches and everybody can say, we're behind creating an equitable, inclusive,
This kind of ad hoc analysis of,
you know, while there's some big
Oh, the
umbrella
East
that
Side
we're all
schools?
gonna
Yeah.
float under.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a table?
That's gotta work.
We've sent it to you before, we put it
Have you, was it
into,
part of
Yeah.
the board?
If not,
There's
yeah,
gotta be
it
some
comes,
level.
we can have the fall,
we can resend it.
Could you
Yeah.
please
It
resend
could be a
that,
vertebrae,
because I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, not the back.
data.
and when you guys didn't see it, it might have come.
Right, because that's,
Shannon would love to.
that's the strongest
Me
evidence you
personally,
have,
I got that
I
impression
think,
too,
that this is the way to go,
And it's over time.
And
Right.
it is over time.
And then
That goes
also,
back to some of the work
Eric's,
before, she would love
the interview with Eric was in there,
Yes.
Get
which
Eric
I
Liddell.
didn't know about,
Yes.
and so again, this is where it makes sense to you, it's not making sense to them.
Connector,
And then I can understand why it's not making sense to them.
She's the right
So that's
person
where
for
we're
that
getting
role.
more and more
I think so, she's
explicit.
very skilled and certainly.
Yeah, that would be really
Okay.
useful data
We'll
point.
get
But
that.
it's,
Thank
Yes,
you.
we can
you
get
know,
that for
it's-
you.
can you get, it's one thing to talk about it, when
Oh,
you're
right.
fix and funders to
He
come
directed.
together and say, well, I
Good luck.
want to contribute X amount of dollars a year to this effort for some period of time, you know?
Amanda, you guys will do that.
And I think we are, but we're not, we're not willing to be there.
All you guys are done, yeah, yeah.
Appreciate the church community faith in me.
Is it here?
Because
Okay.
at times